Welcome, everybody, to Second Watch, your direct line to the second mass. I'm Wil Wheaton. We have just watched the latest episode of Falling Skies, where we've learned that maybe not every alien is such a bad guy after all. And tonight, we have Drew Roy, Connor Jessup, and Reme Abushan with us to help make some sense of this game-changing revelation about Red Eye and his compadres. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. Connor, I would just like to address what has become the elephant in the room. The very physically developed, worked out, much bigger than last season elephant in the room. What did you do in the off season to prepare for Ben's pretty remarkable physical transformation for the second season?
Well, I didn't know anything about the new storyline for this season for Ben until about 3.5 weeks before we started shooting.
What?
It was September last year, and I was in school, and I got a call from Greg Beeman, who's our executive producer and director, and he was, in his usual manner, very, very short and very direct to the point. And he said, he basically said, "So you're going to be an action hero this season. Get buff." And that was basically the
gotta go.
Pretty much.
So you get that call, and he's like, "Go get buff."
Pretty much.
How long does it take you before you go, "All right, I can do this"?
I think I called a trainer that night and
Really?
got into it. Well, I don't.
That's awesome.
3.5 weeks, not much time.
Remy, Maggie goes from beating cancer to beating the hell out of Skitters. And I was wondering if in developing her character, you felt that her having a real life medical scare, just having to deal with something that is probably the most terrifying thing we can imagine as human beings, if that would help the audience make an empathetic connection to her character, because she's now dealing with these alien monsters that are the scariest thing that exists in the Falling Skies world.
Well, I think that what has fascinated me about the cancer survivors that I have met, most of us believe if you get cancer, you're dead. To have met cancer survivors that come out of that experience stronger and more resilient than ever, I think that's one of the things we wanted to imbue in Maggie's character, is the sense that she understands possibly better than anybody else what it means to be alive. She has an outlook on life, which I think to a certain extent puzzles Hal. Hal, I believe, has never met a woman like this before. He's had it pretty much on, and certainly Drew can speak to this as well as I can, that Hal's had it kind of easy in a weird way all his life.
He's a jock, he's popular, he's got a beautiful girlfriend in high school.
That's right, he's interested in a woman, and I know that's sort of a real life thing that you're taking away from that, right, Drew? But I think that what's interesting is he's never encountered a woman like this before. Yeah. And I think it's very subtle in this episode, but he tries all of his tricks, and is constantly surprised that they're not working. And finally, in that wonderful moment at the end of this episode, when he just lets his heart out to her, is when she finally responds to him. To me, it's a beautiful moment.
Let's talk about Hal a little bit. Some things have changed with Hal and Ben now. So you've gone from being your brother's protector to fighting alongside him in his new sort of like buffed out, I'm an action hero sort of persona with these glowing blue spikes in his back that look really cool. So what goes through Hal's mind while this happens?
I think what's going through Hal's mind is exactly what's going through everybody else in the second mass's mind. There's a skepticism, a nervousness. Where does his allegiance lie? But he's also my brother, and family is one of the closest things to Hal's heart. So he's trying to figure out what exactly is going on with Ben. I always kind of played it as if, you had a family member who was getting caught up in a drug addiction or something that you just didn't quite understand, but you wanted them to know that no matter what, you would love them. But I need you to be transparent with me. Tell me what's going on. I want to try to help you.
So now the other side of that relationship is coming from Ben, and Ben has changed a lot, and Ben has a ton of secrets. And then we found out tonight exactly what's going on and what, the burden of knowledge that he has. So how much do you think, old Ben is around, and how much is this sort of Ben who's burdened by the changes that happened while he was harnessed?
I think it's a mix of both. Last season you saw Ben who was very there was a naivety, there was an innocence, he was still young, right? Math geek was what my brother called me. So I wanted to keep an element of that. So what I think was most important with Ben this season was that he hated the Skitters, and he obviously hates them there's a part of that hate that comes from something he's unsure of in himself. You know, he doesn't know what's happening to him. He doesn't know what's going on, and he's terrified by that. And that fear is kind of manifesting itself as this rage. And what I think is interesting about Red Eye coming in and this skid of rebellion coming in, and the reason he's grasping at it so quickly, he's so optimistic about it, is because he wants to believe that something good can come of this, that it's not all bad. He wants that optimism. You know, he's still young, and last season he was very optimistic. So there's still elements of that in him that are trying to kind of struggle against the darker side.
So tonight when we see him tell Matt, like, I gotta go, he clearly feels that he's become a threat to, like, he's put the people he loves at risk. But do you think there's something more to that? Is there a thing that he needs to go find?
Yeah, not to overstate it, but he's there's a certain element of looking for redemption from himself.
Sure.
And he really does want to redeem his character, because there's, like you said, even he's questioning himself. Everyone's questioning him.
Raimi, Ben is a really complex character, and there's just, I mean, even talking to Connor now, there's a lot of wisdom, and, like, I feel like you sort of have the gravitas and wisdom of like a young Wil Wheaton. It's kind of what I see in you.
It's actually an amazing coincidence, because
You watch all of your episodes.
Drew, I want to talk about what is probably going to be one of the most talked about scenes from this entire episode. Hal and Maggie finally kiss in this episode, and then Maggie essentially says, this can't happen again, which generally means, okay, this is probably going to happen again. So before you comment on that, Sarah Carter is joining us via Skype from London.
No way.
Hello, Sarah. So I'm just sort of wondering what you guys see in store for your two characters going forward.
You want to take that one?
I guess you've been doing a lot of talking. I think that because Maggie has so much difficulty with trusting connection, it will be a constant challenge for them to stay connected. But there's no question that love will be there throughout the show.
I'm gonna go find a really hot skidder and make her jealous.
Really? Wow. Drew was talking about how Hal is still young. He's still kind of in high school emotionally, and he kind of is using these sort of like tricks that worked in high school to try and get, to get into a girl's heart, and that sort of thing like just clearly does not work on Maggie. So what is it about Hal, do you think, that makes her interested in him?
Well, Maggie sees Hal's strength, and as much as she doesn't want to, she does trust him. So, she has that coupled with the understanding that he is a bit younger than her, and sometimes he isn't as mature. She's had a lot more life experience beyond age, and she's just concerned that, there's no way that anything could actually work given their differences in life experience.
But you still made a love connection, and you're going to have a second date. Congratulations.
All right.
That's great. Sarah, thanks a lot for taking some time to be with us tonight.
All right, have fun.
See you, Sarah.
Thank you.
That was cool. Isn't it nice to live in the future? We have time to take one question from the audience before you guys run off to go fight the bad guys. So, audience, who has a question for our esteemed panel? Go
My
ahead.
question is for Drew. In season 1, Hal tries so hard to prove himself as a leader in the second mass. And in season 2, we really get to see him step up to the plate. Could you share with us a little bit about him maturing from season 1 to season 2?
Yeah. Well, with the way that the last season ended, and Hal hears that his dad has stepped onto the ship, I don't think he ever blamed his dad for that. I think he just assumed that with him being the oldest, he's going to be that father figure, and he's going to step up to the plate. I don't think Hal really looks in the rearview mirror very much. So even though he's doing everything for a good reason, somebody like Ben might think that, who are you to tell me what's going on? I'm becoming a man myself, I think that's definitely why they get in these little tussles about things, even though Hal's just trying to protect people. He's trying to look out for them.
That relationship is so great and so believable too, because that's the way brothers behave.
Yeah.
Like, I keep waiting for Ben to go, back off, you're not my dad. You know, I
think he does when he throws me on the ground in front of my girl.
That was on purpose. What I found interesting actually was that last season, Hal was kind of the bullheaded, stubborn, aggressive, overly violent one. And this season, Ben's kind of stepped into that position, and Hal's stepped into Tom's position.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like everyone's moving up a rung.
Yeah.
So the dynamic between me and Hal this season, or at least at the beginning of the season, is not dissimilar from the interactions between Tom and Hal at the beginning of last season.
Yeah. Guys, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being here. Drew, you'll be back next week.
I will
So
be,
I'm
yeah.
looking forward to seeing you again. Also, Jesse Schramm will be here, and executive producer and director Greg Beeman will be here. In the meantime, you can find Falling Skies trivia and behind-the-scenes information right here on TNTdrama.com. And tune into TNT next Sunday at 9 p.m. for a new episode of Falling Skies. Then come back, log on to TNTdrama.com for a new episode of Second Watch. Until next week, keep the resistance strong.